Okay. Okay, Stephanie, it's all yours.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm just going to get this properly situated here. Okay, so welcome today to our core group session. So we actually have two core groups collaborating today. Um, and we're going to do a session on intergenerational approaches in preventing family violence. So welcome to our session. As you've noticed, we're going to record this so that we can share it later with you, and you have access to this content to share with colleagues and watch again if you would like. So before we get going, I'm just going to acknowledge that the land that I'm on right now, and in the spirit of our journey to promote reconciliation, we'd like to honor the truth of the shared history and acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We're grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. And I am situated in Mohkinstsis, which is the meeting of the waters, also known as Calgary. And it's in the Treaty 7 territory, which is the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika nations, the Yahe Nakota, including the Goodstoney, Chiniki, and Bearspaw nations, and the Tsuut'ina. I'm also tuning in from Métis Regions 5 and 6. So I would like to acknowledge all of those peoples in the lands where I live and work. And I also want to acknowledge that because we have a variety of folks from all across Turtle Island here, to acknowledge all the traditional territories that you are tuning in from as well, whether they're ceded or unceded, and are privileged to live and work in those areas of Turtle Island. So just some housekeeping. We are going to record it. So we do recommend that while we're doing the screen sharing or the presentation, you could have your video off and yourself muted, and then you could pop those back on if we're having some circle conversation time. And yeah, we're going to have some discussion time there. You can also give your reactions. When we have discussion time, you could always put up your hand if you would like, or you could toss some of your thoughts in the chat. Once we have this recording, we're going to put it up on our YouTube channel, and we'll share the link with you so that you have access to that content. And we'll also post it in the two groups spaces on CORE. So as I mentioned, this session is co-hosted by two core groups. So we have both the Intergenerational Community Practice group and we have the Core Elder Abuse group in this space. The Core Elder Abuse group runs out of Core Alberta in the group space, so you're welcome to join us in that space if you want to have further conversations about elder abuse. And this month we have a second session that we're doing next week on provincial resources around elder abuse for Family Violence Month. So we have two sessions. And actually, while I'm on that theme, one of the other groups, they're not represented here, but we do have another Family Violence Month event tomorrow, and that's the Men's Sheds folks are hosting it. So you'll find that in the core event calendars for tomorrow. Men's Shed Canada is running it. And they're going to have a really lovely event about men's health tomorrow. The other group we have is the Intergenerational Community Practice, and I know many of you are very familiar with that group. And we have that group in both the Core Alberta and the Core National space because it is a national group. So we do have that in both of those places. So with both of these groups, you can find them on the core platforms. In the spaces, you can share resources. You can view some of our other resources and past recordings that we have there. We have lots of really valuable content in those spaces. We do events quite often, so we post them in those spaces so that you could come to community practice meetings or webinars like this. We talk about different issues that we're seeing across Canada here, and you can collaborate with others across both the province and the nation and across Canada here. And you also have the capacity to message other members in the group there if you want to have a deeper conversation with somebody there. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Betty, who's going to chat here.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie, and welcome everybody. Because we've got two groups, Megan and I are going to introduce our teams. So on the it should say National Intergenerational Community Practice, we have myself and Jane Atkins from Sundre, Stephanie from Calgary, Rochelle Patil is from Toronto, Deanne Druin, she toggles back and forth between Ottawa and Victoria, Carrie Albert from Saskatoon, and Lily I always get tripped up on her name, Viagiano from Ontario. Forget where she is, Waterloo. Okay, Megan, do you want to introduce your team?
Yes, thank you. So the Elder Abuse Core Group is comprised of Amanda, who is from the Foothills County. We have Charlene, who is from Hinton, Jane, Sundre, so a member of two groups, which is so exciting. Elizabeth, so Liz, the education coordinator for AAC, but I think is based in Calgary. And then myself, I'm also based in Calgary, and then Stephanie, who's with Healthy Aging Alberta. Okay. Hey, so welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. So we'll just get started here with really what is family violence. Family violence affects all groups and all ages and backgrounds. And it is comprised of physical abuse, verbal, emotional, financial neglect, and sexual as well as spiritual. So family violence can affect, of course, it's a part of elder abuse, but it can also be child abuse. Really, it's anyone of any age and background. And the reason why it's important to do a family violence presentation really all throughout the year and be more aware of it. But November, it is recognized that Family Violence Awareness Month. So we wanted to join together today to kind of talk about the work that we've done over the year and the work that we did through the intergenerational programming, but also to give some information about the shelter here in Calgary. Now, a lot of people don't actually know that Calgary has a shelter. There's only two in Alberta, so one in Edmonton, one in Calgary. Calgary has the biggest, so 14 beds, and it was actually the first purpose-built shelter for elder abuse in North America. So it is hugely important that we have a resource like this in our province, in our city, wherever you might be located. And to speak a little bit about our shelter here in Calgary, we do have a mandate. We only support those aged over 55. So, you know, elder abuse falling under the family violence umbrella. Federally, a senior might be considered a senior at 65. But what we know is that violence is happening to older adults below the age of 65 and often, 50 and up. And so we do need to support those individuals and make sure that they have the resources that they need to stay safe. So older adults is our mandate, 55 up. We ask that they're independent in their daily living. Now, things like wheelchairs or accessibility, that's not a barrier to getting support at our shelter, but we do require our clients to be able to cook like meals, to do some light cleaning in their bedrooms, laundry, things like that. But of course, we are an accessible shelter, which a lot of shelters in Calgary are actually not. So that's hugely important, a really vital resource in our city. We also ask that part of our mandate is that they are actively fleeing abuse. Now, what this means is actively being the operative word. Abuse, as traumatic and important as that might have been in the older adult's life, it does need to be something that is actively happening to them. So something that, happened very recently and not something that happened maybe last year. So that is a distinction that we do follow for our mandate. And then what we know about elder abuse is that, especially from like the World Health Organization's definition of elder abuse, it is a trusted individual. So this is also a very firm distinction about the older adults that we are serving. So unfortunately, a landlord-tenant dispute would not qualify somebody for our shelter, but we are looking for that trusted relationship, a trusted individual. This looks like family members most often, intimate partners or caregivers. And so that is our mandate of our shelter. And what is really exciting about our shelter is that, we do offer safe haven for up to 90 days, but oftentimes do extend. And really that's given the fact that, we are in a housing crisis. There is economic struggles in the city today that we're not able to house older adults nearly as fast as we used to be able to. So while they're in the shelter, they are provided a case manager. The clients are provided all of the supports that they need for income support, applying, making sure that they're set up and applying for housing and things like that. The case managers were also support with referrals for counseling or anything that older adult might need to stay safe and independent. And then we are so happy to be able to offer outreach services. So when the client leaves the shelter, hopefully to safe and viable housing, we offer 1 year post-discharge outreach services. So we follow that client for a year, of course, with their consent. And we do a case plan with them and we make sure that they, have the support that they need so that they're not returning to an abusive situation because, as you might imagine, it can be really difficult to get back out there on your own, to live independently, to manage your bills, to manage things very differently than you might have for the last 30 years that you were in an abusive relationship or living with an abusive family member. So we really try and support in all of those areas, make sure that they are successful in the community. And then we wrap up our supports, but are always there if needed. So we're really happy to be able to offer these services. And I'll leave it to Betty.
Okay, thanks, Megan. I was one of those people that until I met Megan and her coworker, I had no idea there was a shelter for elderly in Calgary or anywhere. It's staggering. It's very, very sad when you actually think about it. So I'm going to talk about intergenerational programs. So when I do this, and intergenerational relationships, I feel like I'm actually singing to the choir. But since you're the choir, I'll just keep singing. Okay, so the World Health Organization put out a statement. The good news is that ageism can be combated, and intergenerational practice works to reduce ageism. Do you want to turn to the next slide? And if we reduce ageism, there won't be elder abuse because ageism and abuse kind of go hand in hand. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of intergenerational relationships. There's benefits for both the younger generation and the older generation. A key benefit, and I'm just going to highlight a few of these, changes in attitudes and perceptions of elders and youth towards one another, increased participation in activities for the elderly, and increased sense of purpose and usefulness, increased quality of life. Okay. And at the very bottom, when properly implemented, intergenerational programs deliver positive health effects, learning and socialization for both young and old. Okay, can you flip to the next slide, please? And benefits of intergenerational relationships: loneliness, isolation, elder abuse, and ageism decreases, and inclusion and belonging, sense of purpose and value, physical and mental health outcomes, and self-esteem and self-worth increases. And I'm just going to mention a few others. It actually also, if there's an intergenerational relationship, it creates a natural support network where people will notice red flags if there is abuse. Also, mental and physical health benefits. And for youth, I know we're talking about elderly, like older adults, but for youth, and it actually goes hand in hand, the youth development and crime prevention. It keeps youth engaged and it lowers antisocial behavior. And as a youth have a relationship with an older person, it reduces the ageism and they learn to respect, and they have an older person in their life that values them. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm just going to tell you a story. Many of you, if you've been in any of my workshops, or I've shared this lots of times, but it's a great story that can be repeated. So this is Wyatt, the boy in the picture. He started, I started an intergenerational workshop or program years and years ago when I was working for Linkages. I started it in a grade 4 class. And the students walked over to the care center and visited with their older adult friends every other week from November until the end of May. And Wyatt was matched up with June, and they had an instant bond. There were 3 boys with June, but Wyatt had a special bond. And at the end of May, after our wrap-up party, he went home and he said to this always once made me cry. He said to his mom, "Don't I get to see June anymore?" Because can you imagine, every month for 8 months, they saw each other. And so his mother, who you'll see, well, over to the left, you'll see the whole family. His mother reached out, went to the care center, got to know June. They invited June to be part of their family. And the next September, when we continued the program, that year it was grade 5, so Wyatt was back. And when I went back, June said, I was part of Wyatt's family all summer. And if we hadn't gone back, I wouldn't have known this. And so again, they were matched up for that next year. And June became such a part of the family. She joined them for birthdays. She went out for dinner with them. She spent Christmas with them. And I asked her if she didn't have family in town. And she said, yeah, but now she had another family. And when you have a non-kin relationship, the dynamics are different. And it touched Wyatt so much that they had a relationship. June was in that family for 8 years. And when she passed away, Michael, the dad, emailed me to let me know what he had posted on Instagram and what an impact June had on Wyatt and Wyatt had on June and the whole family. But you can tell there's that special relationship between June and Wyatt. And the dad credits Linkages. Linkages is the organization I was working for, where all we did was intergenerational programs. He said if it hadn't been for that intergenerational program, they would have never met June. And so they were so thankful. And I'm just going to read you one more thing before I pass it back on to Megan. This is an email that I got from, well, he's probably a doctor by now, but this was, well, maybe not, in 2023. He emailed me because he wanted me to verify some. Anyway, doesn't matter. He actually was involved in an intergenerational program in high school when I ran it in Linkages. And this is what part of his email said. He said about his time with Linkages, he said, it was short, but the experience was very impactful for me. It spurred an interest in geriatrics that I carried throughout university. I have been working with a geriatric psychiatrist for the past 2 years, researching behavioral symptoms in dementia, presented at international conferences on dementia, and have volunteered on a neurology ward at the hospital. I can trace all these experiences back to Linkages, which is back to the intergenerational program that he was part of. So hopefully through this, you can see how impactful intergenerational relationships, we can say programs, but it's actually the relationships, how impactful those relationships are in connecting the two generations, decreasing ageism, and ultimately decreasing elder abuse. So in a perfect world, every older person will have a younger person in their life that will be keeping them safe. Okay, Megan.
Wow, Betty, that story is wonderful from Wyatt and June. And you know what? Just as an aside, completely separate from the next slide that we're going to talk about is I was very fortunate to have such a really strong connection to my grandparents, and the program that I went and did with Betty last year. It was sad to know that a lot of younger people now don't have maybe that connection, but I don't know that it's necessarily because they don't have that relationship, but because people live further away now. People are in different cities, different countries, and so they don't have that same kind of connection, right? And really, what we know about family violence is that it's a cycle, because really, what you see as a young person, you see maybe mistreatment from, you'll be a child, you'll see your mom mistreat her parents, and then the child will grow up and mistreat the parents, and it just is like this cycle, right? And so when we talk about how do we end the cycle of violence, how do we start to prevent family violence and elder abuse, really is my line of work. It really does come down to that early intervention, those early relationships, and those early connections that we have, because that's how you learn how to treat the older adults in your life with the respect and with the dignity that they deserve, and the independence that they would like. So I think it's a hugely impactful story, Betty. So thank you. Okay. So I think throughout the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about the program that Betty and I did together, which really was about the intergenerational relationships and elder abuse kind of coming together to start that process of that early intervention, the early awareness for the kids, and promoting the relationships with the older adults in that program. But kind of how this all got started, when we try and go all the way back, is that the Alberta Elder Abuse Awareness Council, they fund caseworkers throughout the province, right? And it's really just to make sure that case managers throughout the province are supporting older adults where they're at. And we know that there's not enough support in rural Alberta. And then here in urban centers like Calgary and Edmonton, we have a lot more networks, which is really great. And it's awesome to have these resources. But how do you turn all of these knowledge keepers, all of these resources, all of these supports, all of these agencies that are there really specifically to support older adults? How do we harness all of that power and make sure that we can work together, right? So, AAC really promotes this idea of a coordinated community response. So that's a CCR. In Calgary, I co-chair our CCR. It's called the Calgary Elder Abuse Awareness Collective. So we have a lot of acronyms for a lot of things, but really it's just a network, right? It's a network of senior serving agencies coming together to focus on gaps that we're seeing in regard to older adults' care and rights and elder abuse and things like that, but also barriers to service. And so, when I talk about our shelter being accessible, I've only recently learned that many in Calgary are not, and that they don't actually support older adults over the age of 65 at all, no matter your mobility. That's their cutoff age. And this is a huge concern. So, when we talk about our shelter and we talk about how it's elder abuse specific, what happens to the older adults that need supports but maybe aren't experiencing elder abuse, thankfully, but what about those people? So we have this network. Our CCR is the CIAC, the collective that we have together. And actually Betty is a part of it. And so it's a nice little group. We meet, every month or bi-monthly, depending on the work that we're doing. And we come together to talk about, like I said, the barriers, the gaps, but also we're just a group of senior serving agencies that recognize that, maybe another agency like, say, Jess, which deals specifically with domestic violence, maybe they don't, necessarily see a lot of older adults, but they could, and they might, and they will. And the reality is that they do. So we come together and we make sure that we're supported. This can be through case collaboration. This can be through consultation. And really, it just kind of, makes a quicker line to get support for my clients when they come into the shelter. And I know that they need a service, but you have to go through all that red tape, and it's hugely challenging to navigate services. So this has been really great. So helpful to just make sure that our clients are well supported. So that's our SEAC. And then when we talk about the other work that we do focus on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So another acronym I'll throw your way, WEAD for short. So every June 15th, it's recognized across the country. And actually, I think through the World Health Organization recognizes June 15th to be World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And we come together to plan an event to make sure that older adults in the community feel seen and supported, but also that agencies like the SEAC network, that we come together to really recognize that elder abuse is happening and talk about ways that we might be able to prevent it. And so when we consider all of those things, working with Betty has just been so fantastic. The program that we did last year, I really do see the impact now. I didn't see it before because I didn't work with, younger adults, but I saw it then, and I was just so happy to be a part of it. So I'll give it to Betty. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Oh, where do I start? I'm going to tell you about our program. I was so wrapped up in what Megan was saying, I forgot to check to see what I'm supposed to do. So last January, I think it was January, Megan contacted me, and she said she was in charge of planning WEAD, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And she said, so Megan, you may have to correct me if I get some of these things wrong, but she said, like, the theme for elder abuse, this, awareness this year was education, or keep the conversation flowing. And she needed an idea and thought, what better way to educate than to talk to young people? So she contacted me and said, do you have any ideas? And if you ever ask me that, my answer is always yes. You may not like my ideas, but I always have ideas. And so because I have a number of intergenerational clubs in the city of Calgary, immediately I thought of this one program where junior high students, so you can flip it to the next slide. We can just look at the picture while I'm talking. So this is where a group of junior high school students, every week, they do a 15-minute walk down the road to Atria Retirement Center in Arbor Lake, if you know where that is, in Calgary. The name of the high school is St. Ambrose. The reason I thought of this one is because, let me back up a little bit. Corey Brandt is a school counselor with Catholic schools. And since I have been working with her, which is probably for the last 10 years, she has moved around to different schools. And so every time she goes to a new school, she calls me and she says, Betty, I want to start a program here, because she sees the benefit. And so I hardly have to do any work, because Corey calls and she said, okay, I found a care center, or I found a retirement center where the students can walk to, because we don't have a budget to run these programs. And so we can't transport them. So she contacted me and she said, this was last year, I'm at St. Ambrose this year. It was her first year. And I found Atria Retirement Center down the road. And I went and I talked to the admin there and asked if I could bring my students. And she said, could you come and help me get it set up? And of course I did. And so what she has done, usually in a program, we go from November until May, but she has taken, it's called a flex period. I haven't been a teacher for a long time, so things have changed a lot, but it's kind of like options. So they have 3 terms in junior high school. And so every term during their flex period, there's options that they can sign up for. And she was going to accept 20 students into this program, and she did this 3 times. So 60 students in total for the whole year. So when Megan called, I thought, yes, let's do this. And let's start with a new group that is going to start in the spring term. I think they went in April, May, June. And so I contacted Corey. I said, hey, told her about our idea. Of course, she was on board because she's just so passionate about intergenerational work. So what Megan and I did, we went and we talked to the staff at Atria and really emphasized the value of intergenerational programs and how that can impact on older people and with elder abuse awareness. And we did training with the students. We always do sensitivity training, but then Megan did a big portion about elder abuse awareness. And then for the older adults that you see in this picture, we went and met with them separately at the retirement center before they met the new group of students. So we did that, we talked to them, and we emphasized that we really needed a commitment, because if you've ever worked in a care center or a retirement center, it's kind of like, well, I don't know if I can come every week, but we really stressed the commitment, which we got. They were so excited. And then so we thought, okay, Megan and I were thinking, what's this going to look like? What are we going to do? How are we going to do 3 months of program without talking about elder abuse every single time? Okay, we wanted the students to hear the stories of the older adults, and we wanted them to appreciate them and value them and learn to respect them. Okay, and then Corey suggested that the art teacher at her school could maybe get involved. And so that's what happened. Jessica is the art teacher. She got involved, and she came to the visits every week. It was really great because her grandma is in that facility. So she got her grandma to come too. So can you turn it to the next slide? I just want to see. Oh, well, here they're playing games, because at the very beginning, Jessica brought all the she brought art supplies. But first of all, what she had the students do, she had them listen to stories. And then the whole focus was going to be for the students to listen to the stories of the older adults, and then to put that into art form and to write part of their story on their art. Okay, so we did this, but then we supplemented it with games and other activities so that the students really got to know each other. And Jessica, who did the art, a lot of the older adults didn't really want to do art. They were happy to tell their story and watch the kids do the art. And then Jessica worked with the students back at the school to finish their artwork, which was amazing. I'm just going to, so can you show the next slide, please? So this was, this program was so popular that we had other older adults just coming. We met in the activity room, and we had other adults just kind of wandering in, and we had the students matched up with the seniors that they were with every time. But then as more and more came, we just kept adding them to the groups. And this was the very last visit that we had. And doesn't it just melt your heart? Just look at this. You can see all the students. If you look way over to the left at the back, that's Jessica, the art teacher. And the woman at the very right is Corey, the school counselor. Beside her, the man, he was the manager. He absolutely loved this program. He was the site manager for this facility. And then, I don't know, Nancy was the volunteer coordinator. I don't see her in here. I hope she's in
she took
here.
the picture, buddy.
Pardon?
I think she took the picture.
Oh, of course. Sounds like her, right? So look at that picture. Well, and so I asked Jessica and Corey to give me a comment about their experience. So this is what Jessica said. Jessica said, I'm so grateful for my time being able to work with the seniors and the students together. It is definitely something that should be a mandatory program for everyone. The level of empathy and kindness that is practiced and brought back to the school community is something that you cannot teach in a class. So that's from the art teacher. And this is from Corey, who's the school counselor, who I can't even tell you how many programs she started. And once she starts and leaves the school, the program continues because other people take it over. They see the value. Here's what Corey says. The intergenerational program is a hit at every school I start up. I usually have 60 students interested in attending every year. If there's a situation when students can't attend, they're disappointed. They don't mind trekking through blizzards to meet their senior friends. The students enjoy making new friends and hearing about their lives. I really feel that students do not have these connections in their lives as most parents work long hours. Also, many students don't have extended families in Calgary, and so they're eager to experience the idea of what a grandparent is. The seniors are also good listeners, and so students feel heard, and in turn, their senior friends feel heard and feel relevant and the students feel relevant when they're volunteering with the seniors. It's also important for students to see the effects of caring for oneself and for one another across the lifespan. The connections improve mental health, lessen loneliness, and build communities. And isn't that what we want? We want to build communities where everybody is valued. Okay, Megan, moving right along, over to you.
Okay. So yes, so I did speak a little bit about, the WEAD Day, the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. I did talk a little bit about, the SEAC, the network, and our collaboration. But what I'm most excited to share now is the lookbook. So just on that picture there, you'll see the front page. I'll start to share my screen. Stephanie, I'm just going to go ahead. Okay, give me an idea if you guys can see it.
Yes, looks
great. Thank you. Okay, so this is the front cover. So as you'll see, the top left, we have SEAC, because really this was an effort of the intergenerational, community of practice, and Betty just like really spearheading it with her Good Links, brand and business. And I think that it's a SEAC project because I really wanted to highlight the work that, that the SEAC group is doing, but also we can all come together to have this common goal, right? And so this was meant to be like a little lookbook or a coffee table book or whatever you wanted to call it. And we did sell it. I sold it for I think $5 a copy because I wanted all the proceeds to go back to SEAC, to just further our ability to do training for the network and things like that, but also because we wanted to throw a big party for the kids and buy them like 100 pizzas and pop at treats and the older adults so they can all have a pizza party. And that is costly. So it was just so fun. So it is a SEAC project, along, of course, with Corey and with Betty, all coming together to make the book possible. So the picture that you see here, artwork by Cornelia Brandt, that is the sorry, Betty, is she a guidance counselor then at the school? I think so.
Yeah.
So she is more in like the guidance counselor role, but as you can see, wonderfully artistic. And then the art teacher, they, along with the kids and the older adults, they really put together this book. So I'll just scroll through. I'll go nice and slow, but really we did, for the table of context, we talk about, WEAD, what is elder abuse, the types. And before we just go further, Betty did mention that we did the elder abuse training with the kids at Atria and at the school. But we did, water it down a little bit because you don't want to scare the kids and talk about elder abuse and all the scary things. And really the whole book was, how do we keep our older adults safe? Like, that was the theme. It's not about elder abuse. I mean, it is, but it's about safety, for the kids. How are we keeping them safe? Are we keeping them protected, respected, with their dignity and everything intact the way that it should be? When you have an older adult in your life and you care so deeply for them, you want all of these things for all of the other older adults in everyone's life. And in this line of work, it's incredibly difficult every day to hear these stories and to see these situations at the shelter. But the happy ending is to getting to be able to support them. So I'll just go through. And then, as I say, there's, the good links and the special thanks to St. Ambrose and Atria. And then we do talk a little bit about the community response. So this is Jessica's artwork, the art teacher, just beautiful. And then, the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, it's all about growing the conversation, like Betty said. How do we keep our older adults safe? How do we keep the conversation going about what is elder abuse, and how to support older adults? So I'll just go through. I'm just so excited to get to the artwork, but we'll just keep going. So the signs of elder abuse, as some of you might know, it's that confusion, depression, unexplained injuries, change in hygiene, change in mood, and then the different types of elder abuse, right? And of course, if anyone works in elder abuse and, would know that financial abuse is definitely the most prevalent, that we see the most often. And then especially now with all of the scams and the frauds, it's really taking over. But of course, we do see the emotional, the verbal, definitely the physical, lots of neglect, and the sexual abuse. Okay. So 1 in 6 people over the age of 60 are victims of elder abuse. Family violence against seniors is most often perpetrated by their adult children, followed by a spouse and then a sibling. So that's all about that family violence piece, right? Elder abuse falling underneath that umbrella. It is about the trusted individual, but also about the different aspects of family that are causing harm. And then the statistic here, 1/3 of violence reported to the police against older adults, by a family member. But I can tell you, 1 in 10 seniors are affected by elder abuse in Canada. But I can say that out of 14 people at the shelter, 0 have reported that to the authorities. So I think that number to be much higher. And then the community resources, right? So out of the shelter, we do operate the Elder Abuse Resource Line. That number is highlighted there, along with many others for the city of Calgary. But the Earl is very unique because it's a 24-hour line. We're not a reporting line, but you're welcome to phone or a family member or a concerned friend and just say, like, this is what I'm seeing, or is this elder abuse? This is what I'm hearing. What can I do? You know, where should I go if I worry that my brother is abusing power of attorney? Or, you know, we do have staff 24/7 to give resources and support to the callers that call that line. And so, you know, there's something always available if shelter is not necessarily what you're looking for. So that is a picture of one of our rooms. We just recently had them all renovated, so this is an older picture, but still, you know, a very lovely room that they get to themselves. Many of the rooms have their own bathrooms. And unlike other shelters, you know, in the city, the Unison Elder Abuse Shelter is not an emergency shelter. Like I said, we have criteria, the mandate, but we also have like an in-person assessment process when someone calls the URL to ask for shelter space. We do ask that they come in person, and you know, if they're out of the city, province, country even, we have done like Zoom calls and things like that. But we just need to get a better picture about the abuse, make sure that it is actively happening to you and that you are independent in your daily living. We are a dry shelter, so there can be no substance use. But we do, of course, have people come that, you know, struggle with addiction, and we give the necessary resources. It just can't happen on site, and you know, people are really good about that. And so that's a picture of one of our rooms. And like I said, you know, we're not an emergency shelter, so we are afforded the, you know, the ability to give a room like this. You know, older adults have more specific unique needs. You know, many of our clients have walkers, and so we need to have larger doorways, grab bars, emergency pull cords in the bathrooms. Emergency shelters in Calgary, you know, often are mat on the floor programs, and those are great because they house a lot of people at once, and you know, in the nights of need. But they're not suitable for older adults. Many emergency shelters do not allow for oxygen because it's a hazard. We do. So there are unique needs that older adults have. And so when we think about shelter for them specifically, they do need to look different. They need to feel different. They need to, and you know, have added support. We're staffed 24/7, so they can always feel like they have someone to talk to. We're not overly crowded. We just have 14 beds, 14 bedrooms. So, you know, I think it's a really beautiful, dignified place. If you're in need, and you know, we're able to support you. And there's Betty. She's lovely. So this is a little write-up about Good Links, about intergenerational program, about Betty, you know, founded in January 2024, all the good work that she's done. Just an amazing woman. And then we have St. Ambrose and Atria. So this is a special thank you to them because they hosted us for the program, and you know, went through the elder abuse training with Unison. Okay, so into the art. Okay, this is Betty. So, you know, like Betty, I'm just going to
move along.
Yeah, I'm moving along. It was a beautiful picture, but I'm going to scroll along and just kind of speak to. I don't want to speak to every photo, but of course they're all so important. But really, what happened is Betty's right. The kids, you know, they were so excited to do the art project, but also the older adults, you know, just kind of wanted to talk. They just wanted to tell their story. And so the first name here is the student's name that did the art project, but they just sat, they had snacks, they had chocolates, they just talked, and the kids sketched. And then there's a little blurb about the story. So this is Chris, who was an Army medic. And so the students just kind of recorded what they heard and just wrote a little bit about, you know, what the older adult was experiencing at the time in their early life. You know, this lovely lady, Emma, had a bakery, so they talked about that. And it was about, you know, when we talk about how do we keep our older adults safe, it was about building these relationships. So to watch the kids and the older adults just talk, do their art, paint, even having like the faculty involved at the school was just amazing. Like, look at this art. I'm sorry, but this is just incredible. The kids worked really hard, and then all of these little photos of the faces. This is what the face of the older adult looks like that did the story, and that was all done by the art teacher. So when we talk about high engagement, like this is what we're seeing, right? Huge engagement from the students, huge engagement from the older adults that were willing to share their stories. Some of the students wrote poems based on the stories that they heard. It was just fantastic. Okay. So yeah, like I said, poetry. Um, and what was really nice is that we were with the We Out event that I was talking about, we had sort of an expo style. What we did is we had the SEAC network. Each agency got their own booth around the Unison at Kirby Center gym. And they set up their booths. We had, an elder come and speak and bless the day. And then we were so happy to have the kids come. We had some representatives from the St. Ambrose School. For 3 or 4 of the kids came, and Betty interviewed them on stage, and just talking about like what was the impact, what was, how did this program impact you, and how did it frame your ability to keep older adults safe in your own life, and does this change your opinion about older adults in your community and in your family, and how important they are. And it was a really lovely day. We also had the mayor at the time, Mayor Jody Gondek, come and speak about her experience with, intergenerational living and her mother and older adults in her life. And yeah, so this is just a few of our CCR partners, our SEAC partners. Of course, we have Karya and Unison co-chair the group, and then we have many others, but these were just some that at the time offered their brand. And then the photo that you saw, we have all of the residents that joined into the program, the students, the faculty, and then of course Betty. And then a lovely shout out to Copy Repro downtown Calgary, who printed the books for free. So we're very thankful for them. So this is just a little snapshot, of what intergenerational programming can do. But also when Betty's talking about, it's not programming necessarily as it is relationships. The relationships that you build through these kinds of programming really are what impact, young people's lives, older people's lives, but also the ability to keep each other safe and to end and prevent the cycle of violence that we're seeing. And at such a staggering rate. I mean, when we talk about the fact that, most of the situations that I encounter on the Earl or with clients in the shelter with elder abuse are almost always adult children or grandchildren. So when we consider, I'll just stop sharing, Stephanie. When we consider that, these relationships can actually save lives, it's incredibly important. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that I got to share that with you. And then, yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about healthy relationships now, because I think that's really the point, right? Intergenerational programming, we know that it can build these relationships. It can keep older adults safe. It can do all of these things. We can, work to end the cycle of family violence, work to ending elder abuse. But really, what does a healthy relationship look like? And those are the kinds of things that we really wanted to promote with the program. It looks like communication, okay? It looks like active listening. It looks like respect. It looks like dignity to the older adults in your life. And it really just looks like having that open forum to make sure that an older adult is heard. They might not want certain things or feel strongly about other things. And I think that family members and partners and things like that are there to listen. So we really tried to promote that with the students from the students from St. Ambrose when they went to Atria. And Betty was fantastic at that. She did the sensitivity training. That was just the coolest thing ever. She put like oven mitts on their hands. She gave them glasses with tape over the lenses and put cotton balls in their ear to say, this is what an older adult kind of experiences on a daily basis. Their vision is lower than yours. Their hearing is less than yours. Typically these are just things that happen with aging, and it's not meant to be a bad or annoying thing. It's meant to be celebrated, but also just like acknowledged that we just have to pivot the way that we're treating our older adults when we're with them. And had them walk around and try and open like pill bottles and things like that with their oven mitts on. Like, it's just one of the most like impactful things that I've done in my professional, work, was to see this program really from start to finish, and to see how when we join it with something so scary like elder abuse, we don't need to make it scary. It can just be about safety and respect. And I think that's what, when we talk about healthy relationships, what it really all comes down to. So thank you for letting me be a part of that, Betty. It was just fantastic. And that's it for me. Thanks, Betty.
Okay. I'm glad that was an impactful experience. When people, when I do the sensitivity training, they love that activity. It's, yeah.
I want you to come and do it for my staff.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. Yes.
It really, it shows the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I do it with the students and the older adults separately before we ever start a program. But anyway, this is not about that. So Megan understands my passion for intergenerational work, and most of you, or a lot of you, are from our intergenerational community of practice. So you understand that. And if you're working in the elder abuse awareness field, I'm sure that you also understand how valuable it is to have younger people part of older people's lives. So we have some time left for you. So questions, or if you've had an experience that you would like to share that, like, maybe somebody I don't know, some kind of an experience that relates to the topic. So because there's quite a few of us, I'm not always very good at seeing a hand up. So you can put your hand up, or you could just start talking. Just don't interrupt anybody. So who's first? Okay, I'll be first. I knew about elder abuse, but I think until I actually had a conversation with Megan, in my mind, I was thinking elder abuse being physical. And then we all hear stories about grandchildren calling, their grandparents and saying they need money. And of course, that's abuse. But I'm going to be very vulnerable here. Years ago, when my mother was still alive, she was in a different province. She had dementia. She was in a care center. And I was in Alberta, or I was in BC at the time. My sister lived in Ontario. We couldn't be in Manitoba to look after our mother, but we had a brother there, and he looked after her finances. But that was back in the day when we didn't have computers. And so we couldn't go online and check our bank statements and activity on the bank in our accounts. And so we would get statements sent to us, and I was on the mailing list. So it was my address. So we discovered there was some money missing. And so no problem. I just called my brother and I said, hey, what about this money? What did you do with it? And he denied that he had taken out that money. And so then I thought, okay, because I foolishly, obviously, in hindsight, trusted him, I called the bank. I said, can you please send me a copy of the withdrawal slip? Because I wanted to see who signed that withdrawal slip. They sent it to me, and it was definitely his signature. And until the day she died, he denied taking that money. And it was only last winter when I was talking to Megan, I said, Wow, my brother, that was abuse towards my mother. Like, so sometimes it can happen right in front of you and you're not even aware of it, or you don't connect the dots.
And thanks for being vulnerable, Betty, because that is so true. Like, we've even had people on the Earl or family members of those in the shelter be like, well, I was going to get that money anyways, so I needed it now. I don't need it in 10 years when they're passed on, right? I need it now. I'm trying to buy a house, or, and it's that sense of entitlement that we see. And that's this idea of like, it's deserved to me, like it's my inheritance, or it's owed to me because I took care of them for so long. And so I think that it's important to recognize that is abuse. Like, even if that were the case,
Yeah,
it's still financial abuse for the senior, for the elder adult involved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions? Those of you who are running intergenerational programs, have you noticed, or I know that you've noticed, tell us about the impact that you've noticed on either the older adults in your program or on the younger people.
I can share, Betty.
Good.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carrie Albert, and I'm in Treaty 6 territory in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And so I'm part of an intergenerational program in a long-term care home here, where we have 25 grade 6 students. So they're a little bit younger than the kids in Betty and Megan's project. Who come for the whole 10 months of their grade 6 year to work in Sherbrooke. They do their learning alongside the people who live there and who use the center for services. One of the things that, like, for as far as impact and safety, that I've really noticed in having the kids at this age working with people at Sherbrooke is that many people at Sherbrooke need to use wheelchairs and walkers. And the kids become really aware of safety in our community, as far as protecting and caring for those who use wheelchairs or who have some mobility issues or who need walkers. When we go out beyond the building, even into like the Sherbrooke yard and beyond the parking lots, even taking a walk just around our neighborhood, the kids notice right away that there's limited accessibility in certain areas for people using wheelchairs, and how tricky it is to navigate just taking a short walk. And I find that once they complete their grade 6 program with us, they do go on and see accessibility in through very different eyes, and through a lens of, I've worked really closely with people who need to be able to go across the street. When they push the cross light, it needs to be a little longer so that they can get across safely. Or we need to be living in a community, in a city, in a world where people are able to get on and off of a sidewalk with a wheelchair. So our group hasn't done a lot of direct discussion around elder abuse, but thanks to the presentation today, I'm going to take this back and share it with our community to see if we can do some more work delving into that conversation. One other thing I wanted to mention is our care home is part of the Eden Alternative philosophy, which believes that people's lives should be abundant and lived in a human habitat from till the very last day that they're here with us on earth, until the very last moment. And we use boredom, loneliness, and helplessness as sort of our three conditions. They're called the three plagues actually in Eden Alternative. So it's believed in this philosophy that boredom, loneliness, and helplessness actually kill people. That there's, medications people can receive to help with their health, but if boredom, loneliness, and helplessness are prevailing, that this is detrimental to people's lives. But sharing conversation around boredom, loneliness, and helplessness in our art studio is a way that kids and elders do share vulnerably about, times in their life where they have felt those things. And that's across the generations. So young people feel it, and the older adults feel it. And it's a way for them to talk about, how we can help each other and care for each other through times of boredom, loneliness, and helplessness, and that being together in a community, a healthy community, is actually an antidote to that. So thanks for letting me share, and thank you for this really amazing presentation today.
Carrie, I loved your story, and I think that's something to remember is that when we think about like healthy relationships, and when we think about our young people and intervening early, when we talk about family violence and when we talk about elder abuse, is that they see everything, okay, and they absorb everything. So they're seeing like, this crosswalk's not long enough, or this sidewalk is too tall. How are people navigating? And it's like, yeah, but imagine if they're at home and they're seeing mistreatment happening to their grandma. At first it would probably be very scary. And oh my goodness, why are you yelling at grandma? But then after like a year or two of that treatment, it might be like, well, grandma she's just gonna nap. she doesn't care, or this doesn't affect their relationship because grandma still lives here and grandma's still safe and grandma's still here, so it's okay. And so I think that when we think about our younger people and when we see like how impressionable they are and how when we just put that positive spin on it, like, yeah, you're right, Timmy, this crosswalk isn't long enough. We should write a letter to our MLA or something like that, right? And we put those positive spins on things. It doesn't need to be that scary. I know, what is this city doing? It's crazy. Where are my tax dollars going? It can be like, let's put a positive spin on it because this is about older adult safety. And I love the idea that you want to bring elder abuse kind of more into the fold, and really with the young guys, it can just be like, how are we keeping them safe? It can encompass all of those things, right? And this idea about helplessness and stuff like that, it really comes down to social isolation. When older adults are isolated, you're right, like they're just not going to thrive. If anyone's isolated, they're not going to thrive. And so I thank you for sharing. I just think that's wonderful. And earlier we did talk about AAC, Alberta Elder Abuse Awareness Council. Liz, they probably have someone near there that could come and talk to your faculty, come talk to you, a case manager in the area. I think you said Sherwood. Liz, there should be someone there.
When I was thinking this is an excellent plug for everybody to hop on to our session next week, where we'll be sharing, all of the funded communities, the case managers throughout the province. So certainly feel free to reach out for me if you are looking for, supports in your area or who would be the closest to your area. I can put my email in the chat box. But yeah, once again, it's an excellent plug to continue this conversation next week. It's not going to be as maybe interactive as this presentation with Megan and Betty. It's going to be pretty resource heavy, but we'll do our best to make it as interactive as possible. Maybe use some scenarios, some case studies, but that's exactly what we'll be sharing is the resources that we do have currently in place throughout the province. Some of the pieces around the WeAdd toolkit, different websites, the system navigation map that Stephanie will share with Healthy Aging Alberta, and some of the pieces from Megan, and then some of the other folks that are part of our group as well. So if you're able to join us, it's going to be next Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30.
Put it in the chat.
And I'll thank you. And I'll put my email in there too.
Yeah. So thanks, Carrie, because yeah, that's the whole point of when we talk about the network with SEAC, when we talk about AAC and the whole province, is how are we connecting everybody, right? And if you feel that you need some support with more information about elder abuse and how to talk to your network about elder abuse, that's what they're there for. But also, how can we frame it for the little guys that, you know, don't need to hear about all that scary stuff, but they do need to know that everybody needs to stay safe. They need to stay safe. How do we keep everyone safe, right? It's not just older adults, the disability, you know, community as well. And so I think that was a great story. So thanks, Carrie.
So
Hey,
we have a question.
Sorry.
We have a question in the chat there about any ideas about incorporating intergenerational programming for day programs, not LTC or retirement.
Okay, Melissa, are you able to speak to that exactly like what you're looking for?
Hi. I just
Oh, can you turn your volume up because we can't hear you very well.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just work at a day program and I would love to incorporate intergenerational programming. And I also run a phone program. I don't know if you've heard of the WOW program, Without Walls. I'm sure some of you have. But yeah, just wanting to incorporate some intergenerational programming, but not sure. We don't have a school that's super close by, and so I'm wondering any ideas or thoughts of how to incorporate.
Hey, does anybody in this group do that already? Where do you live, Melissa?
Waterloo, Ontario.
Oh, Ontario. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Melissa, you don't have a school that's nearby?
Not super close to walk. No. No, we're across from a big park.
Yeah. Do you have any lovely local supporters or funders that would want to give you some money for transportation?
Buses? Yeah, well, we could try. Yeah, we could try.
I find that when you speak to community members, they want all the same things that we want. They just don't know they want them yet. So if you have the time and the availability, I think just showcasing, you know, why this kind of program is important, and maybe Betty can give you some resources for that because of course she's the expert. But I find in terms of funding and things like that and getting those supporters, showcasing to them why that might be a great opportunity for the kiddos.
Hey, Melissa, this is just a thought that popped into my head. Do you have in your community like a homeschooling group? So a group of parents that are choosing to keep their kids at home, because I think if you were able to connect with a group like that, then transportation would likely be looked after already.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great idea.
Also, it would be great. I know with our day program work, we just have a schedule and we have staff that run the day programming, but we kind of collaborate together to figure out things to do. And knowing that it's like this particular day at this particular time really helps with organizing it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. That's a good idea.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And tomorrow I'll be sending out a follow-up email. So Melissa, feel free to email me and I can connect on Zoom for half an hour to help you brainstorm.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Betty. I appreciate it.
Okay, people are starting to leave and we want your feedback before you leave. So Stephanie, do you want to put the link in? Oh, there she goes. I'm going to give you like 3 or 4 minutes right now. If you would please click on that link, and I'll give you a few minutes to complete the feedback because we really need your feedback so that we know if we're in the right direction or how to improve, okay? And then don't go away because then we're going to wrap it up. So click on the link. See you in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, how are we doing? Have most of you finished? Okay, so 2 questions left. Question number 1, what are you taking away from this session today? If you don't want to say it out loud, you can put it in the chat. But I'd love to hear your voice.
So I'm taking away a new perspective on collecting wisdom of our seniors in the community using our leadership clubs from our high school.
Thanks, Jane. And Melissa said, this has inspired me to begin an intergenerational program where I work.
And for me, Betty, it's my takeaway is that I started looking at the work that we do at the shelter a little bit differently. I think that we need more of like a holistic approach. And I think that we need more like natural support work within the support that we're giving, right? We're a housing first agency. We want them out and in the community and back into living day-to-day life after what they've experienced, and we just want we see an outcome measured by they were housed in 4 months. Oh my gosh, that hasn't happened in so long. We love that we were able to get them settled and into outreach and all those things. But I think that we need to slow down and kind of look at like what are some of the natural supports that we can give. Maybe that granddaughter wasn't a safe person, but maybe this auntie is. And I think that those are things that just I started to think about more when I saw the work that we were doing with the younger generations.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, I will read the chat. Carrie says, I'm taking away the idea that all children can learn about elder abuse in ways that are healthy and age appropriate. And Severia, I hope I said your name right. I would like examples in French language settings. There is an organization in Montreal called WIN, W-I-N. I forget what it stands for. And that's in French. So I will include that link in my follow-up email. Okay. And the CEO there is Tracy Wynn.
Okay.
Tracy Swim. And she would be happy to chat with you, I'm sure. Okay. And then Carrie also says, we value and protect those we get to know. Intergenerational programs offer this opportunity. That is so true, Carrie. We value and protect those that we get to know. I was going to say, my brother knew my mother, but obviously there was no respect or love. So those that we get to know and appreciate and love, that's awesome. Okay, so the second question, what's going to be your action step? So Melissa said she's been inspired to start intergenerational program. You don't have to start a program. You can do something in your personal life. Like if you have kids, spend more time with it. They should spend more time with their grandparents. If you have older parents, don't forget about them. Okay, make them feel valued. Maybe get them into an intergenerational program someplace. There's lots of things you can do in your personal life and also in your organization. Is there anything that jumps to mind, while I said that? Oh, Severia, I'm starting intergenerational projects in my parish. That's awesome. Severia, where do you live?
Barrie, Ontario.
Barrie?
Barrie.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. You know what, Severia, I've got an intergenerational program that meets in a church. And it's local high school kids that walk over to the church every Friday after school. So that's amazing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Elizabeth, are you trying to say something? I saw your lips
I
moving.
always want to say something, but I always want to give people the room to speak. I was just thinking about, personally, my son actually started a leadership program at his school. And as you know, Betty, I do a lot of work in the schools as well with my own company. But I was thinking of part of their leadership program is they call them like mini practicum. So they don't use volunteerism because there's a lot of red tape with volunteering, but they do like little mini practicums throughout the year. So I think I'll bring this forward to it's a City of Calgary program. So I'll bring it forward to the staff there, and perhaps it's something that they can take part in throughout the year.
Yep, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. Most people have left already, which is fine. They stayed for the presentation, and I'm sure that they got a lot out of it. And thank you for the rest of you for hanging in here with us. And thanks for coming. And our next event is December 9th, and I'll be sending more details about that. So if the elder abuse team and the intergenerational team could just stay on for a debrief. And thank you for the rest of you, and have a wonderful day. Yes, Severia. Oh, bye.
I could continue the conversation with you about, our projects here in our community if you're interested, Betty.
Do you know what? Why don't you email me about it? Tomorrow you will get my email. That would be wonderful.
Okay.
I'd like to
Okay.
hear about it.
I
Thanks.
will. Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank
Bye-bye.
you. And then there were
Yeah,
6.
just us.
Let me
Hey,
see.
folks, I actually have to head. Okay, I have to head off to another appointment. Okay, it was amazing.